conversation, and you might need to carry it a little bit. So I beg your pardon.
Sure.
Just had this wave of hay fever attacking my nostrils and my throat. So yeah, it's not the greatest experience. Anyway, Ilya, great to see you, man, and welcome to Founders Focus. Sorry, folks, we're a little bit late today. Just fiddling with the tech a little bit. But I'm very pleased to bring this conversation to you. This has definitely turned into the favorite thing for me to do every week. It's just really interesting to speak to people who have been so annoyed at the problems of recruiting that they thought it would be a good idea to try and set up a company to try and solve it at a fundamental level. So today, I'm very pleased to welcome Ilya Brotzky, CEO of VanHack, to the show. So Ilya, great to see you, man. How have you been?
Thanks, Hung. I'm doing well. I hope you feel better with that hay fever you got, but but I'm doing really well, and it's great to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. And you're dialing in from San Francisco, right? So we have a kind of a true transatlantic kind of experience today. Hence, we have a later show for the European folks and a really early one for the folks in the States. Ilya, you're a busy guy, and I know super busy with sort of running sort of VanHack and all these other things that we need to get involved in. We'll talk about later. But what important things have you had to kind of move aside in order to have a conversation with me this morning?
Well, first, just one little thing. I'm actually in Vancouver, so a few hours north of San Francisco, same time zone. Just a couple hours north, but yeah. Anyway, it's all very similar these days, I guess, with everyone being virtual. So actually, family time. So we have a 1-year-old, actually almost 2 now. His name's Benjamin, and usually this is my time to hang out with him in the morning.
Now I feel really bad. Don't say this. I feel really bad now. I'm really sorry, Benjamin.
No, it's fine. It was my decision, right? Once in a while, it's okay.
If I ever get to meet Benjamin, I'll apologize for taking away quality time away from him. Let's start right there.
He woke us up at 5 a.m. this morning, so no problem. We've had some.
No, let's start right there, because it's, you know what. But everyone says, you know what, there's never a good time to do a startup, never a good time to have a family. How was it like sort of doing like them both at the same time? I mean, did you think when you set up VanHack, do you have a vision in your mind with you and your partner to think, you know what, we'll get to this position and then we're going to be okay, we can do it then? Or was it more a case of, look, it's just never going to feel, you're never going to feel like it's the perfect time. We just have to, if we want to start a family, we have to do it. How do you make that decision as a CEO of a business with all those other responsibilities, but also as a person, as a partner, and as a wannabe father? How do you juggle those two things, Ilya?
Yeah, great question. I really feel like it was a few years into the business when I was more established, or the company was more established, so I felt more comfortable to go forward with having a family. We had been in 2020, and so the company was around 5 years old. So it wasn't really like early days where we weren't making much revenue and had to work super hard. Now I feel like there's more of an established process, an amazing team in place. A little bit more of a reputation. People know who we are, so it's not like super early days where I had to work till 10 p.m. every night or later, etc. Weekends. Now there's a little bit more balance, and it felt like the right time. It turned out actually to be a really good time, because my wife got pregnant in November 2019, and we had been in August 2020. So right during the pandemic, where we couldn't travel or do anything anyway. So kind of worked out that way. But in terms of like balance and financials and stuff like that, we were in a more, I guess, established position in 2020 than we were in 2015 when we started the company.
Yeah, really good point. I mean, I do walk it back when I say there's never a good time, because it may be the case that there's never a good time, but there are better and worse times, right? And we can understand when you first start a business. And I know there's a mantra these days to say, the work hard, play hard, I think is a bad thing per se. You need to have better balance. All that I agree is true. But there's no doubt when you launch your new business at the beginning stages where you don't have revenue, you don't have reputation, you don't have help, it's often just you doing it. you do have to work super long hours. I mean, you have to grind it out. You almost have to do 2 or 3 jobs to run a business. You have to do them all, and oftentimes for no compensation at that early pace. You just burning cash. So obviously there's urgency, and obviously that's when you do need to work super hard. Take me back to when it started, Ilya. In fact, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what VanHack is? I think a lot of people do know it, particularly if you're a tech recruiter, you might be familiar with the brand, but there may be other people out there that are not sure what the company is. So can you give us a quick two sentence high level what VanHack is?
Yeah, it's like a van that moves hackers.
Is that actually how it became the name? Are you serious?
No, we pivoted into that name. The name was something else before. It used to be helping hackers move to Vancouver. We were very focused on just one specific city. Now we've expanded globally, but no, we help tech talent relocate or work from anywhere, I should say. We started, really focused on the relocation piece, and now it's post-COVID work from anywhere. So we have a community of around 380,000 tech professionals from over 100 countries, people from all walks of life, very diverse community. We connect them with employers, mostly in North America and Europe, although we did work a little bit in Oceania, Australia, Singapore. And really just want to make a kind of borderless world for tech talent. So companies can hire more senior and diverse talent faster. So yeah, we've been around for about 7 years, have a little over 100 people on the team, and made over 1,700 hires to date.
That's amazing. And by the way, I was 2 revelations there. Number 1, the van hack, the idea of actually driving hackers with the van. I like that. I think that you need to put that somewhere in the logo. I think we need to almost like retrofit that idea.
We've been thinking about redesigning our logo one day, but it's like so many other more important things to do.
No, this is the most important thing. This is absolutely the most important thing. But then actually the truth of it is it's based on Vancouver. So the truth of it is that Van is from Vancouver. So basically, I think the initial idea was obviously Vancouver, similar with all the Pacific Coast, super high demand for developers. Companies couldn't hire local talent easily. There was certain places in the world that had excess developers, if you like, or people who wanted to relocate. And there needed to be a facilitation to that. And there needed to be a way to make that easier rather than have individual people and individual companies have to just swim through it all themselves. So where did the idea come from? It emerged 5 years ago, but how did it kind of become a thing in your own mind? When did it become obvious that this is something you were going to do?
Yeah, actually, one thing is funny you said at the top about recruiting. We starting recruiting or seeing problems in the recruiting world and wanted to start a recruiting company. It's actually not something we tried to do. We actually didn't decide to start a recruiting company in the beginning. In the beginning, it was actually an education company. So I'll talk about how we made that transition. But I guess it all started when I was living in Brazil. So I lived in Brazil for 4 years. After university, I graduated and I actually had 3 job offers: one in Brazil, one in China, and one in India. And the best paying one was in Brazil, and I had been there before, so I was excited to go back. And I was working there for about a year and a half, and decided then to quit my job and start working as a nonprofit in Brazil. So it's a whole kind of life. 2012, I decided to make this life change, and then I got connected with a startup accelerator in Rio, and met a lot of tech talent in Brazil there through that accelerator. And I was working in education startups there. So my whole focus was how to create online content, kind of similar to, recruiting brain food, a newsletter or some kind of online podcast or online school, teaching people. In this case, it was, teaching Brazilian university students kind of how to get connected with tutors and things like that. Fast forward to a few, those startups didn't work out, but I had this idea to help people move to Brazil because I saw someone created a program called China Career Blueprint, and I thought, maybe I should do this for Brazil. A lot of my friends from North America were asking me for help to relocate to Brazil. At the time, it was kind of a very hot destination, BRIC country. It was on the cover of Time magazine with the World Cup and Olympics coming up. And my Brazilian friends, when they heard about this, said I was crazy, said I had to help Brazilians move to Canada. So I was like, okay, maybe we'll see. I remember like it was really, really hard to like sell the courses for the Brazil Career Blueprint. Maybe I sold 10 or 15. But then I one night created a Facebook page back when that was a thing, called Live in Canada, but in Portuguese, Morar no Canadá. And it got like 5,000 likes in a week. It was crazy. Back again when Facebook likes were a thing. And I kind of realized, hey, there's like something here. There's some kind of pain here, that people have that they want to have solved. And when I moved back to Canada in July 2014, back to Vancouver, I threw up a landing page that was called Van para Devs, so Vancouver for Devs. It wasn't like there was no name for the company. It was just an idea. And it was actually the first original idea was to teach people how to code and to come to Vancouver and learn how to code and then maybe get a job. But who ended up getting in touch with me after I shared this page on social media were people who knew how to code, but they didn't really have the soft skills. So they didn't know how to do a resume, or they didn't really understand how to speak English very well, or didn't have that confidence. So the first product that we launched, we're still going today, was called VanHack Premium. And it was an online school to teach developers soft skills. So that was kind of the first idea. And about a year into that, companies started asking us for introductions to developers and try to figure out the recruiting side of the business, which was a whole journey because I didn't even know you can make money with recruiting, and like that was a whole new world for me. But high level, that's how things started.
Yeah, that's amazing because I know you're doing great, and as you say, you've placed 1,700, multiple thousands of people over time. So obviously, it's become a good business now, and money is sort of something you've had some experience of. But when you started, I love the scrappiness of it. I mean, folks, if you're an entrepreneur, this is actually really good evidence of just getting stuff out there and seeing what happens. Because without the Facebook page, you wouldn't have known. There's no way you would have known that this was actually the market. Just chuck it out there, free to do, and suddenly you got 5,000 likes. Guess what? That's a very good sign that there was a hidden, or at least an unseen need that you wouldn't be able to see, but you put it out there. And then when you landed in Canada again, straight away, get the landing page up. Like, forget about having a full-fledged thing. You just don't know about that yet. Get the landing page up. If you're getting signups, if you're getting people subscribing, you're getting people saying, I'm kind of interested in probably just the copy, right? I mean, all they were attracted to at this point.
It was actually full of spelling mistakes as well, because my Portuguese wasn't very good, or still isn't that great, but so I had like a bunch of spelling mistakes. I was too embarrassed to show it to my wife, who's like Brazilian, and she could have helped me, but at the time I just was like, that's just
I wonder whether that helped your credibility in some way. Like, sometimes it can be cute. It can be cute when someone like is kind of slightly incompetent at the language,
I like to think so.
Yeah. So maybe the cute factor helped you in that way. But I think that's lesson number one for entrepreneurship. And this is where the web makes it different from sort of pre-web, if you like. And we should know this lesson by now, right? I mean, the web's been around 30, 40 years. We should know this lesson already, but we don't. Too many people that I see that want to be entrepreneurs, want to do new things. The first thing that they're working too hard in the background and in silence and working away on what is a product. And I'm saying, chuck it out, chuck something out there, because that is your only way in which you're going to figure out whether there is a market for what you're doing. Get something out there. Landing page, if nothing happens, it's a landing page, but you get it out there and suddenly you might get something, a Facebook page, some sort of online things. All of this is free to do. Pre-web, you would not be able to do this, right? So it was much more expensive to try and launch or experiment with the business pre-web. Now that we have Web 2 now, and Web 3 coming up, all of these things are just really miracle opportunities for us to really experiment with. Get it out there. Number one kind of thing we got to think about. Throughout all of that journey, Ilya, now that obviously you're a big deal in the world of recruiting, from those like pitiful, like humble beginnings, should I say, you've had a journey. In that journey, what was the biggest mistake you made?
First off, thanks, Tony, for the claps. That's really nice to see people here. Hi, everyone. Honestly, the really biggest mistake was hiring the wrong people. To be very ironic almost, as a recruiting company, you wouldn't think that we would be making that mistake. But specifically, early days, we actually had myself and 3 co-founders And these three co-founders, I didn't really know very well. Like, they weren't good friends of mine. They were just kind of some people one of them I had met once in person, one of them and two of them I had never met in person. So it was like some people I met on the internet. And of course, there's some great people you can meet on the internet, and a lot of times that can work out. But in my case, I really rushed into it. Honestly, I was in such a point in my life where I had like a bunch of failures that I didn't really think VanHack was going to be anything. Like, I just was hoping it'd be a side project that maybe would pay my rent. So I just kind of invited people that I knew were interested in startups and in Brazil to work with me. And I gave them all equity. So we all had 25% of the company day one. No vesting, no cliff, nothing. Just, hey, we're all equal partners. So yeah, that was very tough. And I had to like let them go one by one, because it just became obvious that like they weren't the right fit. I can go into details of that story. But it was basically the first year of the company was really stressful because of that. More stressful than it needs to be. And then I made another mistake. I'll just finish with the second point, where a few years later in 2017, I hired someone who was kind of a mentor to me when I was younger, to help us with sales. And that person ended up stealing money and creating a copycat of the business.
Wow.
So yeah, I've made a few hiring mistakes over the years. But definitely hiring the wrong people and not being serious in my hiring process, and kind of not thinking that it was a big deal. Just like, oh yeah, you have a pulse, you want to help VanHack, you're hired. That's kind of how it was early days. So yeah, I was not very good at hiring before.
So that was you'd probably describe that as naive optimism.
When you start, I'm a little bit like that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, I'm very much the same way. I'm very much like, hey, this is why I now work by it myself, right? Because it's like one of my biggest flaws that I just give people like, yeah, sure, I'm sure this person's great. But that's not the case. And if they're not aligned with the vision, and if they're not aligned in terms of what you want to do and the output, whatnot, it can be super, super difficult. When you find that out, like when you find out actually this person's a lag, that's tough. Even tougher when you find they're actually rowing in the wrong direction, or in the case that you mentioned at the end, they're actually, stealing IP, stealing stuff off you, even worse. So yeah, very, very tough indeed. And you know what? These are kind of mistakes that typically might be like terminal to the company, Ilya. Was there a moment when that might have happened where you thought, crikey, don't want to do this, I'm leaving, I'm chucking it in? Did you ever have that in your mind?
With the last of the other three co-founders, like, we were able to stop working with the first two fairly easily because they weren't in Canada, so we didn't have like any real legal issues. But with the third one, he was in Canada, we had a signed contract and everything, and it was a point where it wasn't like I was gonna stop working on the idea. I said, like, I'm just gonna quit. Like, it's either I quit or you leave, like, you decide. And you leave and get paid for your shares. So he was gonna get, like, it was either you get nothing or you get something. That was kind of the deal. But I was gonna quit, and I was gonna just start another company with a different name. But same idea. Like, I was still passionate about the idea. I still knew that there was potential. This was in 2015, like a long time ago. Or 2016, early 2016. Anyway, so that was a kind of a point where I was thinking of not necessarily quitting, but just walking away from this specific brand and idea and just starting something new. But no, it's funny. Like, anytime that I've had a low moment, there's always been something that's kind of brought me back to, like, okay, everything's gonna be fine. Like, just keep going. Whether that's like a conversation with one of our candidates or an employer or someone on our team, or I don't know, something in life. It just feels like there's always these ups and downs. But anytime I'm feeling like that, I go and chat with a VanHacker in our Slack community, and I feel better. So there hasn't been like a real serious like, I'm gonna stop working at this moment. No.
You know what? That's actually leads us on to the second point. Like, how do you maintain morale over time? Because you are right. Like, everything's up or down. I mean, the career or lifestyle of an entrepreneur is up or down, like sort of almost as bad as crypto, right? It is literally that way. So it's very important to be able to maintain your own morale. And I love the fact the last thing you just dropped in there. Like, one of the things you can do is just like talk to one of the candidates that have got a job or, gone through the process. And I actually remember back in my recruiting days, that was actually one of the advice one of my bosses mentioned to me, because he said, you know what, recruiting is going to be up and down. You're going to have people hating on you. And you're going to miss your target now and again. You're going to feel the pressure. You're going to do all of this. Go and speak to the person you placed, or go and speak to a great client. No agenda, just chat to them and keep in touch. And that's going to just help boost your mentality. Great technique, folks. So if you're kind of feeling the down at some point, which is going to happen, just connect with people without an action, right? Without a call to action, right? There's no thing you want this person to do. Just connect with them, because they're gonna just give you a different conversation that's gonna lift something, and give you another day's worth of effort. It's gonna give you another day to. It's gonna get you through that day, so you can come back again tomorrow with fresh things to do. Any other ideas you have in terms of morale maintenance and morale boosting? Do you have any sort of thoughts on this, Ilya?
I mean, I guess long-term thinking is another one. So sometimes, like a lot of times, I get really in the weeds of like, we need to hit our quarterly goals or monthly goals or X goals. Ask anyone on my team. I'm not sure if anyone from our team is on this call now, but yeah, they can probably attest to that. I'm very focused on, let's get, goal-oriented person. But then sometimes, when I do have those stressful times, I do think about, my goals, what I want to do when I'm 50 years old, for example. So I kind of break down, okay, and when I'm 50, this is the goal I want to hit, and that means I have X amount of years to get there. And hey, you know what? That doesn't sound too crazy. That sounds like enough time. And I think someone like, I don't know, this might be Tony Robbins or someone like that, said, like, you underestimate what you can do in 1 year, but you overestimate what you can do in 1 year, and you underestimate what you can do in 10 years. So kind of that long-term thinking of, even though I'm not where I want to be, or some kind of short-term problems happening now, over the long term, like, look what's happened, between now and 10 years ago in your life. And then hopefully, in the next 10 or more years, things will be better. And that kind of gives me a little bit of a, I guess, confidence and calm that, hey, it's going to be okay, and we'll get through this.
Yeah, there you go. A third bit of entrepreneurial advice: like zoom out, like fairly regularly. Make sure you do that, because as a leader of a business, that's what you have to do. Yes, you need to get in the weeds at times, and maybe it's your personal style to stay in the weeds. That's okay, but you've got to discipline yourself to be able to zoom out and project further forward, not only for your business but also for your life. You know what? I met a friend of mine. Hi, Ariana, who actually, I don't think she planned it, but she said that her life basically went in 10-year chunks in the same way you kind of described it. And she had this like radically different career paths. So she's now like a head of talent for this software company. But then it turned out that, like 10 years or so before that, she was actually a professional dancer. I thought, cool. How is that even, how does this like translate? And then it turns out like 7 years before that, she was actually like on her way to being a professional pianist. So, it was one of those where, like, radically different career paths, but in 10-year chunks, and she's achieved high level within those 10 years. So you don't necessarily need to put like 30 years of work to get to this point. Because I can tell you, all right, she's not the most senior person in the world, by no means junior either, though. And I've seen people work 30 years and get nowhere near where she is currently. So she's almost had like 3 different careers at high level, just having these 10-year chunks of it. And that's caused me to rethink a little bit about how I behave, because I'm generally not strategic at all. It's a source of pride for me not to be strategic, right? But I wonder whether deep down, that's some kind of me trying to make myself feel better for when I should be more strategic, and generally think a little bit more about what are those short-term plans. As a CEO, then, what tooling do you have to sort of get the idea into action? I mean, there are like productivity tools, the tools that you use for your business, but do you have like a tool that you do for yourself, like some sort of method or framework that you think, right, this is how I'm going to do it? What's your methodology as a person to get things done, Ilya?
This notebook, it's pretty simple. I like to keep it simple with that. I just have a notebook. This was actually one of our notebook we made for when we hit our 1,000 hires. I still have this, and just put bullet points, to-dos, get it done. If I finish it, I cross it out. If I don't, I leave it circled, or I put a star, kind of remind myself. But just I got this from Richard Branson. He talks a lot about this, and actually also when I was interning in Australia, one of my managers there used the notebook all the time, and I just really liked it and started using that. So that's just kind of like the basic one. But then in terms of like company management, I really like OKRs. It's something we implemented about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago now, and it's been really, really great, especially as the team grows and every department kind of builds out and has their own goals, and that leads up into our team goals. So we have those every quarter, and it's not easy. It's definitely a lot of people who you have to kind of get their opinions and figure things out and find time even to have the meetings with your team. But I find it's really, really helpful to have that kind of short-term quarterly goal that everyone can rally around. And I really like having a quarterly theme as well. Like this quarter theme for us is focus. And we're really just trying to work on one metric, which is increasing the number of interviews that are booked on our platform within 14 days of the job being posted. For example, we just really want to like have that kind of quick success with our customers. So those things, and I'm a huge Slack user as well. So maybe too much so, but I'm a really big fan of Slack, and just kind of using that to communicate asynchronously, voice messages, quick calls, huddles, chats, emojis, GIFs, all those things. So that really also helps with communication across a remote distributed team.
Yeah, and that's what VanHack is, isn't it? It's a distributed teams, a few folks sort of in and around, so you can meet. But generally speaking, it's always been like a remote first business. I want to go back to the notebook though, because I think that's fascinating that you use that. I think that's really cool. How many times, folks, have we actually used like innumerable to-do apps, right? It's like so many things that are there. It's Trello. It was like there is to-do. There's all kinds of things that we've tried, but sometimes
we use Asana actually internally. It's pretty good too, just to give them a plug. Asana, yeah.
I mean, I think for a group, all of those things are useful.
Yeah,
but for an individual, I just would think that I'm now going to go back to notebook as well, because I've realized that this just may be slightly more accessible than a screen, because sometimes if you're staring at a screen, it's just full of interrupts all the time. I mean, right now I'm doing a live stream.
There's no notifications on this.
No notifications. Plus, when you take a break, you can pick it up with you and definitely just walk away with your thoughts. And that can really help you think through what is important. Right, and if you have skills doodling, why not? You may make something. I think that would actually be quite a useful thing to try and do if you religiously did it. Like, it isn't the Branson method, or it's not even his patent, but essentially, start of the morning before you fire up a laptop and get into inbox chaos. Think about what needs to be done and write those things down. And then at the end of the day, when you shut the laptop down, then get your notebook out and see where you've done those things and what needs to translate for tomorrow. And I think that may help you just prioritize and get the ugly stuff done, because sometimes, there's busy, the reason why there's busy work is because we basically want to avoid the hard stuff. And we persuade ourselves that this is important, but it's just urgent. It's not important.
I find it similar to doing goal setting. Like, I write goals on a piece of paper and I put them in my bathroom, so I see them all the time, every day, every morning, or multiple times. So the same kind of thing. Like, when I write something down, it goes out of my head and it's on the paper, and I don't have to think about it until I look at it, and then it feels really good to just click check things off, not click with a pen. So it's just something about it. I don't think it can be beat. I don't know. Maybe someone will watch this interview 30 years from now and think we're crazy, but I really do believe in it.
It's timeless, man. I mean, ultimately, writing stuff down is timeless. I read this very interesting book on it's just one of these sci-fi novels that just stretched into the end of time and stuff like this. And obviously, they're trying to figure out. And one of the things that, how do you preserve knowledge at that length of time? And it turned out that obviously digital is not the way to do it. It turned out the way to do it is actually to write it into stone. or to write it into something that doesn't erode. I forget what it was, what material it was, but it was etching it into something that didn't erode, and sticking it into space where it was impervious to rust and stuff.
Maybe gold or something.
Yeah, and there it was, and it was like, yeah, there's no reason why it would actually change, because it's not going to be. There's no energy in there. There's no sort of requirement for electricity or anything like that, or parts that can, that need to be maintained. So yeah, I think writing is the ultimate technology. It's an amazing innovation when you think about it. Being able to take thoughts out of your brain, stick it into an it was the original async communication tech, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The original async. Take it out of your brain, stick it down there, and that can go anywhere to anybody who could also read it and get some ideas what you're thinking. So yeah, we need to go back to that a little bit. Okay, let's talk about sort of the sort of main things that have happened with the platform this year, Ilya. In fact, no, let's rewind a little bit. Let's talk about COVID-19. There's so many things have happened in the world, obviously, over the last 3 years, let's say. I think we all recognize that, guess what, someone's pulled a thread here, and the entire thing's unraveling. So it's going to be this way, I think, in a very kind of chaotically changing scenario for a little while longer. Probably, I think, for most of the next decade, I would imagine. Let's take it back to the COVID era. How did that impact the business, and did that help in any way, or did it actually hurt? Because it was a relocation product. Fundamentally, people come to VanHack because they want to move. There was obviously a big block on travel. How did you cope with that, and where are you at now with the situation?
Yeah, well, it was a really, really painful short term, and I think beneficial long term. So right in the beginning, March 2020, we had a 2 weeks period where basically all of our customers, at least it felt like all of our customers, put things on hold. Just said, hey, our investors are telling us not to hire anymore, or this offer that we've made, we're actually not going to honor it anymore. We're going to rescind the offer, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really scary period, and we actually had to do layoffs, which was the only time we've ever done that in the company history. We went from 45 people to 30 people. And it was just survival mode for, like, let's say 6 months. The government of Canada helped a lot, actually. They had this, I forget the name, the wage subsidy, CWS, I think it was called, Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, I think that's the name. But basically, it was a lifesaver for us. We also had a loan that we had negotiated before the pandemic because we wanted to kind of put a little more fuel on the fire. From BDC, which is another Government of Canada organization, and that came in right before the pandemic. So that all helped kind of give us some foundation. But really, it was pretty scary. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen, and we didn't know where the next hire was going to come from. It was really like just fighting for every hire that we can make, and just barely hitting break even every month. So that lasted till about October or November 2020, till kind of the end of the year. And then we started seeing things really turn around. So actually December 2020 was our best month of the year of 2020. So kind of finished things off really well. And then 2021 was just like a rocket ship, really. We 3x revenue from 2020 to 2021. We started getting a lot more, just companies being okay with hiring people they've never met before. So the big problem with VanHack before, well, not problem with VanHack, but like challenge we had was a lot of companies wouldn't hire remotely. They would not do an interview remotely. They wanted people to come to the office. It was even such a big issue that we ended up flying developers to cities around the world to have in-person interviews. So we would do these events where we would fly someone to Berlin, have that person spend a week in Berlin and meet all the different companies locally, and then hopefully get hired. And we that was really a lot of work, visas, hotels, helping people, all these things. So anyway, with COVID, that we didn't have to do that anymore. We can just do everything online, and the companies were really open to having people work remotely for a while and then relocating, or just working remotely forever. And so that really helped us. And we just started seeing huge demand from employers. And had a record year in 2021, and things haven't slowed down since.
That's amazing. And you know what? I totally get what you're saying with the fear in 2020. It must be really difficult, particularly the business that you were running then, or the world the world as it was then was very much based on, yes, we're going to relocate people, and then it was obvious that no one was going anywhere, that could be like a terminal challenge. But as you say, you got through it. And in fact, what's happened is that people are much more happy to engage with candidates in a remote setting first. And I think the idea of starting someone remote in order to relocate, the remote to relo, where someone's going to come up with a phrase, I think that is going to be a big feature.
We have a type of job on our platform, the remote plus relocate. But yeah, there should be I've been thinking about that actually. If you can help with some branding.
Yeah, I'll check my rate card on that. No, I actually don't know, but I think that is a thing that I've heard more than once, because the idea of starting someone remote feels safer anyway, because you're not asking that individual to go through all of these chaotic
sorry, I'm
life
gonna have
changes.
to stop you, hon. That's so funny you say that, because before the idea started someone remotely felt way more dangerous. So it's completely opposite now, right? Think about that. Like,
yeah, the world's shifted. My mindset's shifted. Everyone's mindset's totally shifted. It's like it's a soft entry to work remote, because this person can stay where he is or where she is. There's no like logistical stuff, no life stuff going on that we need to worry about. Let's just slide in a couple of hours, maybe 10 hours of first week, second week, maybe 15 hours. It's all remote. Get them working on non-core stuff, but you'll get more familiar. The communication will be there on Slack or Zoom or whatever it is. And then let's say you give it 3 months, you might then be at a point where you recognize, okay, this person is pretty effective doing this, this, and this. We now need to bring them into core if you want to do that, or if that person wants to do it, and you can say, you know what, now's the time to come in if you want it, and you can bring them into team. And that's where you'd be much more happy to try and go through the investment of relocation when you've already had the evidence that this person is someone you want. You have in effect got rid of the assessment process and converted it into a remote job trial, so to speak, paid remote job trial.
A little bit, it's still pretty serious. Like when in the beginning stages, the person really, like, they do quit their jobs, they join your company. Like, I would say that there's it isn't like a second. You're right, there is a little bit less risk, I would say, in terms of you don't have to invest in the relocation, etc. But it is a still fairly serious thing, and we haven't seen very many times things don't work out. It usually is like 99% of the time works out. And another cool thing I just want to add is, like, a lot of times people start remotely, they relocate, and they keep working remotely. So it's more about having that person maybe like in your time zone, or it helps with retention because that person now is like living in a country they want to live in, and their visa is connected to the company, although that obviously can be not like a super connecting factor. Like you can figure out ways to get other jobs. But yeah, I do say, like, it is pretty serious. Like, the person does take this very seriously. Like, I'm gonna quit my job and give notice, etc., and start planning to relocate my family. Usually they have families to the other side of the world. So candidates are very dedicated in the process.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and absolutely, I think it does make sense to reframe it in such a way that it isn't a casual decision to make. It's a serious sort of decision, but the decision is not as sharp in the sense that, you know what I mean? It's almost like it's spread across a longer period.
Yeah, you can warm up into it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everyone just feels more comfortable with that scenario. It's not just this dropping, almost like parachuting someone into a new environment and saying, off you go. And by the way,
we actually had, sorry, hon, just quickly, we actually had an example of this, I think late last week, a candidate got hired. He's an Indian guy. He got hired at a company in Vancouver. Although most of our customers aren't in Vancouver, this one happened to be. And he was working for 3 months remotely, and he actually ended up deciding to resign. So it goes both ways, right? It's not just about the company really getting to know the candidate. The candidate also gets to know the company because they're making a huge life shift too, to the other side of the world. And he said, unfortunately, the engineering manager and I didn't get along, etc. It just didn't work out. And it saves him a huge pain, right? Imagine if he had moved here, he probably has a family as well. And then all of a sudden he doesn't feel comfortable in his position and has to find something else. And that's kind of scary when you're, another country. So yeah, it is a two-way street in terms of getting to know each other and kind of warming up into that relationship.
Yeah, and depending on how the visa sort of regimen is in the country, it actually can work in the favor of the candidate in this way, because if your visa is attached to the employer, then in many cases there is a very strong disparity of power,
Hmm.
because you're basically, I won't say indentured is probably too strong a word, but in many respects, like you're dependent on the company, and
Yeah,
if your
in the
fam,
US, I think so, because like the way the H-1B works, and that there's a whole rabbit hole we can get into about American immigration. But basically, you have like 90 days, or like I think last 30 days to leave the country if you get let go, and your spouse can't work. So you're the sole breadwinner, and you have
yeah,
30 days to leave the country if you get let go. In Canada and I think other countries in Europe, it's a little bit more flexible. Like you
yeah.
have a lot more time, and it's easier to find another position to sponsor your visa. But yeah, like there are places in the world where you basically are like an indentured servant. It's really scary.
Yeah, it's
So
there's
yeah.
a post that I'm going to put into to Brain Food in a couple of weeks' time about this H1B. This guy's on a
Mm,
H1B. It took him 18 years before he got off the H1B
oh,
kind of cycle. And
yeah.
obviously, by that time, like how much has he contributed to various companies? How much has he given in tax? How much has he done all of
Hmm.
this stuff? In
Hmm.
that throughout that time, I don't think his wife was able to work. So
Yeah. So
you've
sad.
locked this person out of the marketplace. I mean, this is the land of diversity and inclusion, etc. But you're literally saying spouses can't work,
Yeah.
crazy stuff. So yeah, we need to be more permissive, and I do think one of the things I would hope to see. And maybe there's some hope there is that we'll have some significant immigration reform in the sort of the last year that we've had with global talent shortage, with workers being a lot more demanding. We're going to be a lot more kind of understanding as to, okay, someone who's coming in from outside may actually give us the skills we want, and why are we putting barriers in the way of this person contributing
Yeah.
when they can and want to. It's crazy stuff. So hopefully we'll get more enlightening stuff going forward. Let's take us to where craziness of the world obviously has continued to occur. I do want to talk a little bit about obviously the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because
Hmm.
that has triggered an enormous amount of movement also, and lots of people are moving around. Is there, and in fact, VanHack, you guys came in and sponsored one of the events that I was kind of helping to organize in order
Hmm.
to support the community over there. So, firstly, thank you for doing that, Ilya. And
Hmm.
secondly, like, how do you like? Is like, how does this impact the platform? Are you seeing a surge of candidates, if you like? And is there a way in which sort of companies are supporting people who are fleeing conflict?
Yeah. No, thanks for bringing this up. It's definitely something that's been front of mind for us as a company, and me personally as well. So just for some history, I was actually born in Siberia in the Soviet Union, Russia. I have family from Ukraine. My grandfather actually recently passed away, was living in Kharkov, which is one of the major cities in Ukraine. So it's something that I have a personal history with that region. Although I left when I was 2 years old, so I don't really remember living there, but I do have family and things like that in both places. So it's really hard to see, and just the generally human tragedy. Um, so with VanHack specifically, we actually decided to, like, the February 24th, the day the invasion started. Right away, we launched a campaign to help all as many Ukrainian engineers on our platform who wanted to get hired get hired without charging a placement fee. So we waived our fees. And we just really created a special page, vanhack.com/Ukraine, if anyone wants to check it out, that has all the profiles of candidates who wanted to be shared. And we've helped so far 18 people get hired. And a few of them have actually already relocated. So it's really cool to see, their stories, and actually see them living in Canada and Europe. Yeah, it's been tough, but at the same time, we're just trying to do our part. Like we've also found, like, a lot of employers have reached out and want to help, but it's just been hard with the candidates. A lot of the candidates are, in bomb shelters, or just having personal issues, fleeing the country, moving, as refugees. So um, uh, we haven't been able to connect as many as we'd like. We always want to get more, I guess. But actually, Actually, I shouldn't say that. Early on, our goal was 3 people hired, so we've kind of we started had these kind of humble goals, and now we've got to 18. But if there's still candidates looking to get hired on VanHack, if anyone wants to go there, it's again no charge to hire them. It's kind of one of those things where like it's such a big problem and such a big issue. We're just trying to do like a small part to have a little bit of an impact, and it definitely feels nice when you see people saying thank you and having their lives impacted. So
it's actually again one of a leadership challenge also, isn't it, Ilya? Because you know when you're managing a big team or you're managing a group of people, whether people like it or not, you're still the person people look up to for direction in circumstances of this type. And like I mentioned sort of earlier than this, we can expect stuff like this occurring, like really significant global events, I think occurring at sort of higher rate of frequency as the system kind of unravels. And as leaders, we kind of need to lead in a more dynamically uncontrollable environment than perhaps we've been trained to do, or perhaps we've been used to. I mean, we've had this maybe 30-40 year period where it was predictable that there wouldn't be external crises of this magnitude, and you had one set of management skills. Now you need a different set of management skills, and I think that's a challenge for all the leaders to try and upskill. Which leads me to the question: how do you get better as a leader, Ilya? Is there anything that you think about in terms of developing your own leadership skills? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, great question. Well, first thing, I'm a big reader, or I should say listener, to Audible and podcasts. I think I listen to maybe a book a week or every 2 weeks. Right now I'm reading Build by Tony Fadell, who was the CEO, co-founder of Nest, and worked on the iPhone and iPod with Steve Jobs. So he's got a lot of really cool stories in that book. I highly recommend it. It's called Build. Also reading a book called Power of Now, which is very nice, kind of talking about staying in the moment and kind of a little bit more spiritual and not spiritual, but like mental health kind of book. I really like that one as well. So just always doing that. Another thing is we're part of a lot of different startup programs. So we did like Techstars. We did this program called Lazaridis Institute here in Canada, DMZ. There's a bunch of others, Startup Chile. So really connecting with mentors through those programs has been very helpful for me, as well as other entrepreneurs who are kind of maybe a few steps ahead of where I am and learning from them. And that's also really nice to kind of just test ideas, brainstorm, get feedback, and really like learn and grow my leadership skills. Actually, the last thing is I haven't started this yet, but I'm going to start on Thursday. Actually, 2 days from now, I have a call with him. I'm looking to get a CEO coach. So I feel like I'm at a point right now where we're at a place in the company where it's like getting to we just hit 100 people, so I kind of started getting a milestone. So I kind of thinking about how I want to take my skills to the next level and make sure that I'm really doing everything I can to be a world-class CEO. And so I'm meeting with John, who's the coach, on Thursday to start the program with him. I'm actually not sure all the details how it works, but it's the first call. So it's something I'm looking forward to because it is a challenge sometimes, and I feel like I need to grow in order to help the company grow. So I don't want to be the limiting factor. Those are the ways. And then the last thing I'll say is we also have performance reviews internally. So we just actually went through ours. So a lot of the people on my team our team are giving me feedback directly. So saying, hey, Ilya, like these are things you can do better. So asking that feedback from your team is also very important.
Great. It's great that you have that self-awareness. I think the modern CEO is starting to become much more open to the idea of self-improvement and getting CEO coaches. I mean, maybe a generation above us, they would maybe not be, almost be in denial that there is any requirement for support, because CEOs meant to be the source of all wisdom, and that is the almost the source of their power, is that they know everything. But I think we now know that can't be true, especially if the world is chaotic. We don't know everything. CEOs don't know anything, no better or worse than anybody else. And it's almost about how quickly you're able to acquire knowledge or seek help is actually a CEO skill. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it's it's a professional skill of the connected world to be able to to get information and get help on stuff that you don't know about. That is an accelerant. That definitely is something that helps you perform better in your job. Developers know this, the devs that are, well connected, they're in communities and stuff. Guess what? They can come up with solutions quicker because they can ask somebody. Right. If you're pounding away by yourself, you have to figure out all of those problems that someone else might have figured out a long time ago. And you just be basically duplicating effort and expenditure. So that's a great tip to think about. Okay, Ilya, tell us about what's going to happen in the rest of 2022 for the business and VanHack. What if I'm a customer of the business right now? What exciting things can I expect to happen in the next 6 months? Maybe project out next year or so.
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest thing is our platform is just going to keep getting better and better. And one thing we're really investing in right now is our AI matching. And I know this is kind of a cliche thing that maybe a lot of recruiting companies talk about, where we're using AI and it's all fancy. Like, what does that actually mean in real life? But we've actually hired a PhD in machine learning from VanHack. We use our own platform, our own talent pool. His name's Everton, and it's not just him; it's a whole team of people. But he's kind of the one leading this matching, and it's something that I think over time, the more hires we make, the more hires jobs we post, the more data we get, the more we can feed into that algorithm and just keep improving. And one cool thing that I just realized is that that 80% of our hires happen from the top 10 candidates that we send to a company. So basically, if you're going to hire someone from VanHack, chances are you're going to only need to see 10 profiles to make that hire. So really making that kind of focus on being efficient with our matching and our showing you candidates, and also those candidates we were able to show you within 2 days, 2 or 3 days. So really quickly showing you the right candidate, and just keep working on that over and over again. And of course, at the same time, we want to be scaling both our employer side and our candidate side to just kind of increase the marketplace on both sides and have that lock-in effect where people know VanHack's a great place to get hired and also a great place to find talent. So that's really the main focus. Just keep like the core of the business getting more and more efficient. And then the last thing I'll say is we're actually launching right now two cool products. One is a mobile app for candidates, so just kind of something to help them out to be able to stay up to date with a job search faster, be able to chat with employers, etc. And then on the employer side, we're launching a global mobility software where it's not just about getting the hire done, but it's also the whole relocation process will be within VanHack. So you can see the status, like all the documents you need to fill out for the visa, the status of the candidate's process. If you're the candidate, you can see what the employer's done, and then also like getting all the tips and knowing like it's almost like Uber for developers. Like, when they're on their way to the airport, well, maybe not on the way to the airport, but when their flight is and when they're relocating and things like that. So you can have that process be much more smooth. So yeah, those are the kind of a few things that we're working on that I'm excited about.
That's amazing. And particularly like the Uber kind of visualization is actually a game changer as well. I mean, we forget how innovative Uber was because it takes away the mystery of when the damn thing is going to arrive. Like you can actually see the car around the corner or something and actually commentate on the route that driver's taking. So, I mean, that actually helps you just reduce the tension. Because when you don't know status, when there's ambiguity, that's a problem. In fact, I would argue that the vast majority of negative candidate experience isn't as a result of sort of a bad interaction with another human being. It is because there's ambiguity somewhere in the process. It's like the candidate does not know, has not been informed, doesn't know where they are. They just need to know. So if you've got a way in which, if it's on a relocation, for instance, I can totally see a kind of a progress bar, kind of visualization, maybe a little avatar or something goes down the thing is right there. It's going to make people feel more relaxed on what is a high stress and high pressure type of situation. So I love that. I love to see it. Okay, Ilya, coming to the end of the show, I want to leave the audience with just a few more thoughts, particularly your advice to budding entrepreneurs, or people out there that might be thinking, yeah, sure, I might set up a business, I might do something. What's the one takeaway you give them if you could, do a bit of coaching? If you could turn that around and say, let's coach these younger people coming through, what advice would you impart to those folks that will help them, get better at that early stage as being a CEO?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's so much there. I guess one thing that I think worked out well was I didn't quit my job until I had the foundation to start or to work on VanHack full time. So I actually worked on VanHack as a side project for a year, um, and that I feel like helped me have the confidence to, when I did go full time, know that everything was going to be okay. I was going to be able to pay my bills. Like, we were making enough revenue. So just don't feel like you have to jump before you're ready. I think a lot of people put that pressure on themselves, like, oh, I can't start a business because I have all these other responsibilities. Maybe I have a family, mortgage, bills, whatever. And it's like, if I quit my job, I have to, in order to start my business, I have to quit my job, and that's not necessarily true. You can even do one thing a day to work to help your move your business forward. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, etc. You can find those kind of cracks in the day where you can work on your idea, and push it forward. So I would do that consistently, right? So I think that's important. And then this is kind of a one that's been talked about all the time, but like finding a problem versus a kind of a nice to have. I think it's really, really important. So a lot of times people have this great ideas, they think something's really cool, but it's not actually a problem that people care about. But if you find something that's a real pain and that people want to buy the painkiller, I think that's really important as well. But yeah, I would just say to people, like, don't be discouraged or intimidated by the fact that, like, oh, I'm kind of stuck where I am. If I want to start a business, like, you can find time and get things going in even a short time per day.
You know what? I think that's great advice, because it is also there's counter advice to that. To say, listen, you got to burn your bridges before, you got to have that full focus and all that. That's also classic advice.
If you can, right? If you have a ton of money saved up.
Exactly. It's all about burn rate, man. I mean, it's all about like, great. If you have burn rate, then yes, that's the best way to do it. Back yourself and do it that way. But if you don't have the burn rate, you literally have to keep the engine going. Then that is a constraint. That's your first business challenge. Actually, your first entrepreneurial challenge is that you have a constraint in terms of time and capital. Which means that you then need to adopt and experiment with your product, service, whatever it is, with those constraints in mind. So factor in your present circumstances as part of your business plan I would say is one of the first advice I would give to, from my perspective, is like, where are you strong? Where are you weak? Because if you have lots of responsibilities, lots of things happening, money I need to go out in these kinds of places, that's constraint. It's not a brick wall, but it is a constraint that will educate you as to what the appropriate strategy is going to be, and what the deliverable service might be if you want to parallel process this. And secondly, the idea that the rapid experimentation that you did early on, I think lends itself very much to a constrained environment. If you have this is where I think a lot of companies that just go to raise money, they immediately squander it on mass marketing campaigns, immediately buy random stuff out there, and you think, you know what, that money's just literally getting destroyed. There's no point. That's a capital destruction right there. It's sometimes better to have that constraint, because then it just educates you as to what exactly you need to, what's the quickest way to the market and to the problem. As you say, problem discovery, the way to do it isn't through marketing per se. It's through understanding, where the market itself wants to go, rather than try and force it down that route. Okay, Ilya, listen, thank you so much for your time, man. Really great speaking with you. Final question for you: what are you going to do? What busy CEOing things are you going to do after this call? What's happening after we hang this up?
We have a webinar in about an hour about global mobility, actually, that I'm hosting. So that's kind of the next step in the day. Probably gonna have some breakfast though, because I haven't had a chance to.
Oh man, now I feel double bad. So I need to apologize to your stomach, and I need to apologize to your son as well. So Ilya Brotzky,
I did have my coffee, so. That's
well, Ilya Brotzky, listen, it's a pleasure speaking with you as always. You keep well, sir. Good luck on the webinar, and let's keep in touch. We'll speak soon. Great to see you on Founders Focus, man.
Yeah, thanks. This was a lot of fun. Thanks, and take care. We'll talk soon.
What a great dude. He is a really nice guy. And if you're hiring for software engineers and you're thinking, you know what, we do need a global approach and we're happy to think about remote to relo, then VanHack is a place that you should check out. That's VAN, hack, HACK.com. Okay, folks, that's about it. We'll be back tomorrow because we've got another Founders Focus. It's a double header. We're going to be speaking with Victor Nord and Adrian McDonald of Adway. You might have seen these guys on almost every recruiting event happening in the UK and Europe. They're going for it in 2022 and 2023. Expect to see a big noise from this recruitment marketing automation platform coming out of Sweden. They are going to make a big noise in the space. I'm speaking with Victor Nord, who's a serial entrepreneur and investor and founder of the business, and Adrian McDonald, who is the current CEO. Will be there at 12 p.m. BST. So make sure you sign up for that. Follow the channel if you like this kind of chat. And thanks for watching.